Welcome to Uncensored Conservatism. This is episode number 66. Some things that are not necessarily in the headlines. All right, pity the poor coffee bean grower. First, you have to plant the seed and wait 4 years for the damn thing to grow. Then there's things like the weather to worry about, market price fluctuations, and such. A new study, seriously, they did this, indicates that coffee bean growers suffer a higher rate of depression than the grower of, say, corn or macadamia nuts. I don't know. I have another theory, though. These people are depressed because coffee is usually grown in crap hole third world countries, so... All right, this is kind of funny. Pundits are contemplating how Africa can overcome the stereotypes that portray the continent as corrupt, rife with conflict and poverty. As usual, I have an idea. Just stop being corrupt, cease the conflicts, and help yourselves out of poverty. That might do it. All right, Santa Clara University is being sued for a civil rights violation. It seems their Black Corporate Board Readiness Program excludes non-blacks. They specifically stated it is for us, by us, or FUBU, which I thought was a sneaker brand, but it would appear that only black executives can teach future black executives how to be a black executive. It's also called self-segregation, by the way. So some people in Nova Scotia decided to have a dress-up Halloween party at a firehouse. Unfortunately, 4 people arrived dressed as members of the Ku Klux Klan. One was even carrying a cross, presumably to burn after the festivities. I mean, geez, they could have just dressed up as former Virginia Governor Ralph Northam and donned a blackface. Yep, that's him on the left there. In what should come as no surprise, researchers have discovered that Latinos actually hate the term Latinx, the more gender-neutral term for a Latino or Latina person. Not only that, they're less likely to vote for anyone who uses the term Latinx. You see, in Spanish, they have masculine and feminine designations in their language besides he and she. I mean, if it ends in an A, it's feminine. If it ends in an O, it's masculine. There's no X's there. All right, some rebels in Kashmir on the border between India and Pakistan have started open season on Indian military personnel in the area. 2 Indian soldiers were recently killed while on patrol in the contested border region by rebels. Yeah, it gets serious sometimes. All right. You may have heard that some ballot boxes in Oregon and Washington were basically the victims of arson. Well, guess what? Investigators have now said they've recovered a note declaring that drop boxes will be burned and Gaza must be free. Yes, burning ballot boxes in America shall set Gaza free. Thankfully, Canadians cannot vote in American election on Tuesday because in a recent poll, Cackles would get 64% of the vote, and Trump, the cat savior, only 21%. The somewhat good news is that of Canadian conservatives, Trump would win 45 to 42%, which goes to show that a Canadian conservative is not really a conservative. Stacey Williams, shown there on the left, is a former Sports Illustrated model who was considerably better looking in her younger days. She was dating Jeffrey Epstein, ooh, bad choice there, who introduced her to Donald Trump. She claims now that Trump groped her in front of Epstein way back when. This was tried in 2016, and if grabbing someone by the pussy didn't work, a hug from Trump won't work either, toots. Not that there's any connection here, but since Weirdo Waltz became governor of Minnesota, he steered $910 million of the state's total $1.3 billion investment fund into, you guessed it, Chinese funds. Well, if he ain't screwing the daughter of a Chinese government official, he's lining their pockets. All right, some states are limiting or banning the purchase of land by people or businesses connected to the Chinese government. Proving that ethnic blood runs thicker than citizenship, many Asians are now reconsidering their political beliefs. According to some studies, they don't view it as a common sense thwarting of Chinese government influence in the United States. and more as xenophobia. Cindy Brady. So Susan Olsen plays Cindy Brady on The Brady Bunch. And she wanted to create a reboot of the series with the kids all grown up and having different political views and stuff. There's no word on whether Mr. Brady would be an outed homosexual, though. Anyway, it seems that the idea has been torpedoed, and here she is now, has been torpedoed by the powers that be in Hollywood. It may not have been a bad idea. I mean, it seemed to work for the reboot of Roseanne without Roseanne. But you see, the problem is, Miss Olsen, a.k.a. Cindy Brady, is an outspoken supporter of Trump. So, can't have it. Can't have that in Hollywood. Good news for transgenders in Germany. A new law is set to go into effect, making it much easier for you to use your preferred name and pronoun. Now, I have a theory. Women who think they are men are just ugly, so they have to make like they're a man. And men who think they're a woman are just closet homosexuals, so just cut out the middleman or person or whatever and come out of the closet, dude. And yeah, that's a dude there, by the way. And German dudes who look like women are better than American dudes who look like women, as we'll see. All right. People in the gay community usually refer to their significant other as their partner. It now seems that the heterosexual community is doing the same. I guess the words husband and wife are so old-fashioned and patriarchal and too westerny and stuff. So, I don't know. If you're having an affair, I guess that's now your bonus partner. I don't know. This is a strange one. This is a transgender tennis coach who was fired by the school in Gettysburg. That's a dude who walked through the girls' locker room and would sometimes talk about the trials and tribulations of menstruation. Seeking to avoid a lawsuit, they rehired them. Well, guess what happens? It appears that David Called Me Sasha Yates has another problem. Porn. Because in one example, they are smoking meth and asking someone whether they're a good meth whore. In another video, he's bent over a table in a black bra, taking it up the butt by a masked man. Mr. Yates has now resigned their position, leading to the question, how the hell did they get a job in the first place? I mean, this is Pennsylvania, not the Minnesota of Tim Walz here. As a side note, board members who originally voted to fire Yates have been labeled Nazis, bigots, and racists, which is kind of weird and confusing because this dude is white. Now, this is a weird one. Manuel Delgado was a 43-year-old asylum seeker from Peru. It seems that Delgado had been sexually molesting a teenage relative who threatened to go to the police. Delgado did what any red-blooded Peruvian asylum seeker would do. He went to a park in the Bronx and hung himself from a tree. Well, good riddance. I mean, that's the ultimate form of self-deportation. Well, not that I thought that it was illegal in the first place, but it is now legal to jaywalk in New York City. It's not that drivers are being more polite. It's frickin' New York City where cabs go out of their way to splash pedestrians with puddles. Nope. It's because most of the tickets issued for jaywalking were to minorities. So to the minority population of the Big Apple, I say walk away against those lights. And if you're Jewish, just be careful of those Arab cab drivers. I wonder what Judge Lori Jupiter in Louisiana has against Taylor Swift. The singer will be performing at the Superdome in New Orleans. Unfortunately, there's homeless encampments all around the Superdome, which the state wanted dismantled. But the good judge put a halt to that. In an amusing side note, the Louisiana Fish and Wildlife Service were tasked with clearing out the encampments. Claudine Gay of Harvard University. Cackles Harris, the vice president. And now Darryl Pines. What do they all have in common? Well, they're all black. Two are academics, while the third, Cackles, is the daughter of academics. And they've all been accused of plagiarism, with Pines, shown here, the president of the University of Maryland, being the latest to be swept up in a plagiarism scandal. Now, I'm not saying that blacks plagiarize more than whites, but I also cannot overlook these instances. Well, pity the poor illegal immigrant, particularly in Aurora, Colorado. According to the Associated Press, although the schools have ramped up Spanish language teaching geared towards the 3,000 mostly Venezuelans being dumped in the town, the kids and their parents are suffering the hardships and racism outside the schools. Boo-hoo. Thomas Jefferson High School for Science and Technology in Virginia has been rated the #1 high school in the country for years by U.S. News and World Reports. In 2023, it fell from #1 to #3, but in the past year, it has free-falled from #3 to #14. The reason? They ceased testing students for admission in an effort to increase their minority student body count, thus proving that diversity may not be a strength after all. Well, say goodbye to Boyle's or Charles laws. Anyone who has ever taken a chemistry course are well aware of them and their importance in chemistry. According to a professor at Kennesaw College in Georgia, no need to remember the name of, quote, dead white dudes, end quote, when studying Boyle's or Charles laws or any physical law named after a dead white dude. So, sorry, Newton. I don't know what they're going to call your laws. Barbara Slowik, the police chief of Berlin, which is Germany's capital and largest city, recently reported that the city has reached its limit on immigrants. Besides the financial strain on services, there's been a considerable uptick in immigrant crime. Damn, they're even losing the liberals over there in Europe. Because German is the official language in Austria. It is now reported that 75% of middle school students in Vienna cannot, or refuse to speak German at home. Most of all, these kids hail from Muslim countries. So that's assimilation, Austrian style. Mark Miller, shown here, is Canada's immigration minister, and he recently acknowledged that Canada's lax immigration standards are under threat right now. As a result, they're freezing the number of new immigrants to 500,000 over the next 2 years. That's 500,000 a year. The cause? A lack of available housing for new immigrants. The solution? He could just send them to Aurora, Colorado, or Springfield, Ohio. Now, you may have heard that not one but 2 hurricanes struck Florida this year in short order. As is the case, despite warnings, people tend to loot and vandalize boarded-up businesses and homes. In Pinellas County, the cops have arrested 45 people for doing just that. And guess what? 41 of the 45 are illegal immigrants. Well, there's a surprise. Well, some churchgoers in Appleton, Wisconsin are fretting over the possibility of a Trump presidency. It seems the outsized population from Congo worries that Trump will follow through on deportation plans or restrict refugee programs that brought people from the Congo to Appleton, Wisconsin in the first place. And it's not just eating cats in Springfield, Ohio, folks. About 3,500 African immigrants have found a home in tiny Lockland, Ohio, a suburb of Cincinnati. Most of the immigrants hail from that shining oasis of poverty in Africa, Mauritania. They're being lured there by TikTokers. I mean, the town is only 1.2 square miles. I wonder what the cuisine is in Mauritania. I mean, on the bright side, maybe Lachlan's insect population will decrease. Or rodents, I don't know. A recent study by some pro-immigrant group interviewed illegals making the trek through Mexico to the southern border from Central America. And they revealed that those onerous and pesky American immigration laws, when they're enforced, alter the behavior of unaccompanied minors. Usually they're just let across the border, I've been told. But I've got a great idea. If you want to avoid getting raped or ripped off in Mexico on your way to the U.S., stop coming through Mexico and stay where you are. It's estimated that about $81 billion leaves the country of the United States annually in remittances to relatives in the home countries of immigrants to the United States. But researchers tell me That's a good thing because it helps the economies of those home countries. Now, color me silly, but don't they come here seeking a better life for themselves and not propping up the economies of their home countries? Just imagine that $81 billion in apparently expendable income being spent here in the United States. All right, this is just friggin' genius. In Portugal, a recently passed law makes employers financially responsible for the immigrants they hire. If they're deported, the employer pays for that plane ride home. Death, you pay for the funeral expenses. Commit a crime, you pay the fine or the cost of incarceration. I mean, this is genius. Most of Portugal's immigrant population comes from Africa, where I understand there is no poverty, no corruption, and no conflict, because it's just a stereotype, All right, this is good news. In Arizona, some dude asked a 14-year-old girl where the nearest McDonald's was and then asked her to get in his car to find it. She refused, but they exchanged phone numbers for some reason. Now, the problem for Isaiah Navarro, shown here, is twofold. First, the girl gave him her mother's phone number. Second, Navarro then contacted that number with sexually explicit material after mom turned over her phone to the police. Navarro made 30 calls to the phone describing various sex acts he envisioned with the teen. The pervert was thankfully arrested, thanks to a very smart, unnamed, quick-thinking teen in Arizona. So there may be hope for America yet. And the reason is, we're down to crunch time, folks. These cats voted early for Donald Trump. Have you? Would you rather hear the happy sounds of meow for the next 4 years or the laugh of Kamala Harris? Come on, vote Trump. That's it. Have a great day. More pleasant tomorrow.